What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I spent a good portion of my career at Morgan Stanley. I know the firm very well, have some of my closest friends there, and I can tell you it is a bit of a surprise. I think that Gorman is quite a deal maker, and this is not exactly when he got to steal Smith Barney out of Citigroup at the bottom of the financial crisis. They spent about $2.7 billion for that unbelievably robust franchise, and now they're spending 5 or 6 times that on E-Trade, which used to run Super Bowl commercials with babies throwing money around. I mean, it is so off-brand for the white shoe investment bank Morgan Stanley. I'm just stunned.
Where they get zero fees and a race to zero fees to the bottom.
But worse than that, because that speaks to an economic problem. I get it. Maybe that's why the stock's down 3.5%. But what I would speak to, Alex, I'm highly confident in my view here, is the cultural problem. Is that the clients of E-Trade are not looking for advice. So even apart from the fact they don't pay for trades, they're not looking to have intermediaries that are there to provide wealth management. The spectrum of the marketplace that is willing to pay for a more private level of asset management and financial planning is at a higher net worth level than where E-Trade is. So I think this is going to be a very difficult cultural merger for them.
Robinhood, when they got up to 10 million accounts so quickly, to me it said, look out, E-Trade. How are you going to be able to compete? E-Trade has been basically a static franchise. And if you're Morgan Stanley, maybe you just pick it off and move into that part of the, let's just say that sector of lower income.
Retail
It really is incredible, isn't it, when you see Schwab and Ameritrade? The consolidation is because of Robinhood. And when I speak to the Robinhood guys, they're just crushing it. They're adding accounts at a pace that I've never seen, and everybody else is a casualty of Robinhood.
Does it make sense for Morgan Stanley?
I guess so. I mean, Morgan Stanley, when I was offered a job there, was among the most pristine firms, and you wouldn't, E-Trade was without a doubt I'd say the kind of smarmy upstart, and I've always felt that that's been the way. The two cultures are very, very different. But Mr. Gorman can probably pull it off, but I can't imagine two places that are less alike. But Robinhood's making everybody do things that I never thought would happen.
Over 2,000 people have died. The biggest concentration of cases outside China is still in Japan and Yokohama, where this ship, the Diamond Princess, has been quarantined for more than 2 weeks. And during that time, more than 600 passengers and crew have tested positive. That's 1 in 6 of those who were on this ship when the saga began. Well, those who've tested negative have now been allowed to leave. Laura Bicker watched it all play out.
One by one, they were put onto buses. A man and a woman, both Japanese and in their 80s with chronic conditions. They were reporting growing concerns for the hundreds of passengers finally getting off the Diamond Princess cruise ship after Japanese officials confirmed 2 passengers have died from the coronavirus. A man and a woman, both Japanese and in their 80s with chronic conditions. They were infected on board and taken to the hospital a week ago when they tested positive. More than 620 cases have been confirmed among the passengers and crew on the cruise ship, raising worries about how the virus was able to spread so rapidly among people who should have been isolated. Some experts questioning ventilation and an apparent lack of controlled areas.
I would not stay on this ship if I were you.
It's been surreal.
Arnold and Regina Hopland from Tennessee were ready to go on that evacuation flight back to the U.S. Then she was told she had the virus.
I mean, it was just a disaster waiting to happen. I feel that we're sitting in a petri dish waiting to get infected.
Health officials now questioning how safe it is to let everyone go free.
Any Americans coming off the ship won't be able to return home to the U.S. for at least 14 days, and only if they test negative for the virus.
The hundreds of Americans who were evacuated from the ship earlier this week are now under quarantine in the U.S., 13 of them who tested positive being monitored at the National Quarantine Center in Nebraska, where another 57 people airlifted out of Wuhan could be cleared to go home today. In China, the number of infections appears to be easing, with entire cities locked down and restrictions on hundreds of millions of people.
But the Chinese have done something that's been unprecedented, and maybe it is working. I hope it is, and this may be the first sign that it is working.
Still, dozens of new coronavirus cases are emerging elsewhere in the region, in South Korea and Singapore.